live. Evening, everybody. Hey, Chris. Hey, Gene. I don't know why the Benny's not starting here. Hey, everybody. Evening, Martin. Evening, Amy. I don't know why the music is not playing here. Hey, here we'll try this away. The music is... That ain't right. Evening, everybody. Don't know what's going on with the music here. Hey, Ann. Hey, Deanne, Evelyn, Heidi, Susan, Patty, and Casey. Where's my music? Maybe I'll have to put on Earl Father Hines tonight. All of my music is wrong.
Maybe your phone is messed up.
Something is messed up with the music on here tonight. And I don't know what it is.
Maybe we've taken up your band.
Don't. Hey, Diana. Hey, Pam, Betsy, Susan, Joyce, Deanna, Lorena, Pamela, Diana, and Ann. I don't know what it is. The music is just not playing tonight. Oh, I'll say I love you dearly. You can see my dad in the background getting the rest of his steps in. Let's see here. Maybe I'll just put it on my phone. There, we'll do that. Hey, Christy. Hey, Laura. Luca is cracking up. Yeah, Dad's trying to beat me on steps. He's only got 9,000 to go. Hey, Karen. He's not going to beat me on steps, but...
How is Luca on?
He's barely watching with Cassidy. Hey, Don. Hey, Arlene.
Oh,
Hey.
I didn't have my phone on me when I was walking.
Your steps don't count. Hey, Gail. Hey, Sue. Hey, April. Hey, MJ. Last day of September. It is October tomorrow, and you know what that means. It is Mystericon. Hey, Grandma. Hey, Elizabeth. You were like a duck in a shooting gallery. You can get your light gun out, and the dog will come up and go... Hey, Anna. Hey, Robert. Hey, Lisa. Rev Tov. Yeah, hey, Rob. Hey, Carolyn. Yep. Bring Dad closer. Come on in, Dad. Say hi. Hey, Heather.
Hello,
Hey.
everyone. Like father, like son.
Yep. We're drinking some Jepson Z31, my very favorite. Hey, Jackin' in Hawaii.
Big there. You're close.
Hey, Jenna. Hey, Angela. Hey, Diane. Hey, Chuck.
Go and say hi.
Yeah, we'll be around Pullman tomorrow. Tomorrow is a very rare. I'm telling you guys where we're going for Find a Grave tomorrow. It'll be Mount Olivet Cemetery. Not Mount Olive, Olivet with a T. This is my dad, Rich. My mother, Sharon.
You can't see me anymore.
No, he's over in the chair now. You can't see him here.
I don't need to be seen the whole time. If you want to be seen, come sit.
I don't want to be seeing all this video. People will focus on me.
They're going to see the back of
Now, I promise we'll do some live streaming tomorrow night from the boat tour. I'll put somebody in charge of it. Aiden's going to be skipping the first tour so we can work on check-in for the second tour. Hey, KT. Hey, Susan. Hey, April. Hey, Laurie. Thank you, Laurie. Ronnie's around here someplace, too.
Ronnie, it's your turn.
Hey, Christy.
You got coming away fine.
Hey, Lisa and Emily.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Adams.
Hey, Gene. Hey, John. Hey, Vivian. Hey, Matthew. Diane. Mary. Hey, Tara. Hey, Ronnie, everybody. Just about everybody's around here.
Joey's
He just disappeared.
Yeah. Hey, Lori. Hey, Rodney. Hey, Kathleen. This is a different Benny radio show that I had saved. It was from way back in the weird Chicago days, because I can tell from the file name in my iTunes. Hey, Christy. Hey, Jeff. Now, Catherine O'Leary is easy to find at Mount Olivet. She's right near Inspector Fitzpatrick from the Holmes investigation. Weird Chicago is the tour company I worked for years ago. Yeah, I got my whole family. Well, not my whole family in town. Eli's not here. You can see the back of my mother's head right behind me. Hey, Evie. Kathy, we've been to a couple of pie places. We went to Hoosier Mama and we went to Bang Bang Pie. Hey, Natalie. Glad to have the coffee, that's for sure. Hey, Chris in Fort Myers. Oh, yeah, and Aiden's back there, too. Everybody's back there. Oh, hey, Diane, that would have been way back in the day. I worked with them from 06 to 09. 09, yep. We had to say "ot." Well, here's my dad over here who calls dinner supper. But
Hey.
so
I resemble that remark.
yeah.
To a pole.
Dinner's what you have at lunch.
Hey, Jagan. Carrie, that's I'm sorry to hear that. That's rough. Hey, Jen. Adam asks, are you Georgian or Canadian? Supper. Or Snoopy. Supper time. Supper time. Very best time of day. Pie within walking distance of Palmer. That's trickier.
Swimming in the background.
Hey, June. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I recorded some audio for the Rosehill 5K last year. Hey, Newport in St. Louis. In between Palmer House and the boat is Art of Pizza. Hey, Brooklyn. And hey, Gary, Semper Fi. Yeah, people's mothers always called it supper. It's a very old person thing to do now. Hey, Georgie is in the Palmer House. Yep. Yeah, I hear there's a new washer at my sister and her girlfriend's house. Big party. I'm over 40. I can be calling people old enough to just be a whippersnapper myself. Yeah, when did you last go to a supper club?
Adam will go to them all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's really more of a supper club than a restaurant, isn't it? Alright, we'll let Benny run another couple of minutes here. I've only got the one song from this show, I guess. Evening, Cherie. Evening, Megan. I feel like supper clubs are a Wisconsin thing. It's the kind of thing you run across. Melissa, sorry to hear that. Hey, Aunt. Hey, Kirk. Evening, Bob. Hey, Cindy. Yeah, Dad is presently... He's over here. Hey, Deborah. Evening, Pamela. We'll give it one more minute or so. All this Wisconsin talk is making me want a brandy old-fashioned. Speaking of Wisconsin, guess who got 7th row to Bob Dylan in Milwaukee? You should take pot of the dispensary. Way ahead of you. The 2 milligrams I gave them last night had no effect. We'll try 5 tonight.
Along with the bourbon.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yep, 7th row Bob Dylan in Milwaukee, then 5th in Chicago for November. Longest break he's had in touring since the early 80s. We had a whole war room operating in here trying to get in on the pre-sales. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I think it is time that we go ahead and get started. So, welcome along, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of Mysterious Chicago. It is the last one before October, which I think most Mysterians are going to say is probably the best time of the year. Anybody, most of the places that I work, like Atlas Obscura, it's when I go to Dragon Con or something, everybody loves October. I know I love October. Not to mention, I've got like my whole family hanging around in the background here. I got my parents in from Georgia. I've got Ronnie and Aiden are both here. We've got all kinds of stuff. Welcome along. I'm Adam Seltzer from Mysterious Chicago Tours. I've been a tour guide and historian here in Chicago for about over 15 years now. I've been on the History Channel and the Travel Channel pretty regularly. I have about a dozen books out, including Mysterious Chicago, the book, H.H. Holmes, The True History of the White City Devil, Flickering Empire, How Chicago Invented the U.S. Film Industry, co-written with Michael Glover Smith, who is going to those Dylan shows with me. And coming soon, Graceland Cemetery, Chicago's Stories, Symbols, and Secrets, due out in June from University of Illinois Press. Cemetery tours are one of my very favorite things to do. We're going to be doing a lot of them in person, a lot of walking tours over the next month or so. October is the busy season for this kind of stuff, but walking tours are limited by geography in a way that virtual tours are actually not. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do Rosehill Cemetery off the route. These are stories from Rosehill Cemetery that I can't really work into walking tours, usually just because they're too far away from the entrance. So really tonight is like a whole nother tour. It's like the deleted scenes from a certain point of view.
a certain point of view.
Aiden, you'll find that a great many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our point of view. That's some wisdom right there, kids. You can write that down. But all right, let's make our way into Rosehill Cemetery.
You forgot, but you are.
I am, after all, yes.
Incredibly famous.
Sorry, forgot that line. I'm missing my lines here.
He's flustered having a live audience.
It's weird having a live studio audience. Coming to you live from the Showcase Studio in downtown Chicago. No, I got to do the Rob Reiner. Mysterious Chicago was recorded on tape before a live studio audience. But all right, let's talk about the first grave we're going to see today. One that I actually went on kind of my own little find-a-grave yesterday. I've seen this one before, but I could never remember quite where it was. But this is a great way to kick off October, I think. Up here in Section Q, as it turns out, right near Richard Pick, Dick Pick, is Dr. Victor S. Frankenstein, M.D., born in 1869, the book Frankenstein, about Victor Frankenstein, came out in 1818. 50 years after the fact, this guy's parents named him Victor Frankenstein. I'm sure he probably did, in fact, pronounce it Frankenstein. He was a graduate of Northwestern University, was Dr. Victor Frankenstein. Was really best known for his work in treatment for the geriatric diseases. There's just a little bit about him online. Dr. Victor S. Frankenstein, dead at 85. Worked on Blackstone Avenue. Specialized in diseases of the aged. That's not really what you find him talking about in like medical journals and stuff when he comes up. But really, there's a lot more data out there, just a lot more about his wife, Irma Frankenstein. Irma Frankenstein wrote lots and lots of diaries. She wrote down herself that she never felt that she would be satisfied until she was a literary success. But so far as is known, she never really finished writing anything voluminous. She talked about doing an autobiography, but never got too far. Just lots and lots of diaries and scrapbooks, which turned up in a used bookstore some years back, I think in the 1990s. And a person who ended up writing about it said they went to the store and there were these box of diaries, and the people at the desk said, "Oh, it's no one famous." So they sold it to her like a whole box of diaries for $50. And so now we have a really good detailed account. She talks about what her family was doing during the Great Chicago Fire. She talks about what it was like to vote for the first time. It's also a really good look into like the working lives and the social lives of Jewish Chicagoans in the late 19th and early 20th century. Really invaluable document. But I still can't get over the fact that her husband was named Victor Frankenstein. And was actually, according to some Northwestern publications from the late 1800s, he was a demonstrator of anatomy, which a generation before would have almost certainly meant he was involved in an awful lot of grave robbing. These were the guys who carved up the cadavers. By the late 1890s, they were generally being supplied with all the bodies they needed. Grave robbing was kind of a thing of the past, but it still came up. So I'm not going to say for sure, but the sheer amount of jokes that they must have made at Northwestern about this guy. You're actually attending anatomy lectures and carving up cadavers with Dr. Victor S. Frankenstein. I'm not sure if that would have been as well known at the time as it was after the movies came out. But as you can see, this guy did in fact live till well after the Boris Karloff Frankenstein movies. And I do imagine I can just imagine the guy insisting that it was pronounced Frankenstein too. But we'll move on a bit. He's a little far off the route. But people have told me about that one. I'd seen it, but I could never remember where it is. So yesterday, Dad and I traipsed around until we found it. And of course, Grave Robbing 101 is operating on Sunday afternoon. Now, right up over here. Also, my parents live in a town called Snellville.
Not for long.
Not for much longer. Boy, teenage me would be so glad to hear that. But here's the Snell grave right here at Rosehill Cemetery. This is a guy by the name of Amos Snell who made his money by turning what was then the old Pike Road into what is now Milwaukee Avenue into a toll road. When people were coming into town, he would charge them money. Eventually, they ruled that he had no right to do this and it was totally illegal. But they didn't rule that he had to give all of the money back. So he ended up remaining awfully rich, had a whole mansion over in what is now the West Loop general vicinity, until one day came... I'll just scroll up. Well, there's Mr. Snell. Here's what happened to him. Murder most foul. Speaking of Dylan's rough and rowdy ways tour, Amos J. Snell's lifeless body discovered by his servants yesterday morning. 2 bullets wounds inflicted, either of which would have proved fatal. The deed perpetrated by unknown burglars who were surprised by the deceased. Now, some years before, Amos Snell had given evidence against a burglar that sent him to jail. This burglar was about to get out of jail around the time of Amos Snell's death in 1888, and he'd been going around telling everybody he was having all these premonitions. He knew that this guy was going to come get revenge, or something was going to happen that he wasn't going to live much longer. So he took to just wandering around his mansion with a pistol, waving it around in the middle of the night. Now, personally, it kind of strikes me as a thing that it might have been a suicide or an accidental shooting, but his servants found him dead inside of his mansion. And there were a couple of things, like the safe appeared to have been rifled through. There were some bullet holes in the wall that definitely made it look like he got into a shootout with a burglar. Personally, I have my suspicions that the cops might have tried to make it look like that. More likely, I think it was probably the way that he'd been going around talking. Just what are the odds that someone's actually going to break in the night that you feel like it's a good idea to wander around with a pistol just in case? The old Snell mansion, of course, is long gone. The case remained unsolved, but in the 20th century, quite a number of people decided to write themselves into history, like this paint dealer named Tascott, who tried to write themselves into history by making deathbed confessions that they were the one who had killed Amos Snell. And for all we know, maybe he actually was. There's just not enough data. Most likely it wouldn't have been him. My suspicion has always been that it was an accidental shooting or a suicide, and they just tried to make it look like a burglar to protect his reputation. But we'll never know for sure. And we'll move just a little bit beyond him to this stately-looking mausoleum, a guy whose house we have been to on the morning mini-tours, and in fact I took my parents by it the other day. This is a mausoleum of a guy by the name of Charles Dawes. Now, sometimes I'll drive school groups past Rosehill Cemetery and say, you know who's at Rosehill Cemetery? The guy who was vice president under Calvin Coolidge. And then I'll say, if you think that's exciting, you must be a very strange person. But actually, Charles J. Dawes was way more interesting than that. He was a real pain as the president of the Senate, as being the vice president, he was a pain in everybody's neck. He did things his own way, didn't show up for votes if he didn't feel like it. But perhaps the most interesting thing about him to me is he was also a musician and wrote a fairly successful instrumental tune that he called Melody in A Major. It got to be famous enough that every time he made a public appearance, the band would strike up Melody in A Major, to the point that he got really heartily sick of it. But after his death, somebody wrote lyrics to it, and now it is a pop standard. Many a tear has to fall, but it's all in the game. All in the wonderful game that we know as love. I can see him scowling at me right now in the picture. Looks like he just wants to tell me to shut that up. Well, okay. We'll shut it up, Mr. Dawes. All right. Moving along into the cemetery, one of the more gorgeous monuments there that's really fairly recent is this cool statue for Charles Webster Shippey. One of the guys that I would, you can sing his name to the tune of John Wesley Harding. Charles Webster Shippey was a real estate man. There's not a whole lot of stuff out there about Charles Webster Shippey other than the fact that he worked as a real estate man and died very suddenly. One day he just he was in a railroad accident and got killed. It was at the station. I think he stepped in front of a train. That'll do it. But there's a good quote there. The best portion of a good man's life, his little name, less unremembered acts of it's. I don't know. They didn't set this thing up too well, did they? Now, here's the top. Here's the bottom. The best portion of a good man's life, his little name, less unremembered acts of kindness and of love. That's pretty good. What are you guys back here talking about farts for?
Dad just did one.
I'm working here, kids. No, you're not.
I didn't say anything like that.
All right, let's move along.
Parents pushing.
It was Ronnie. It was all Ronnie.
More than capable.
I
Yeah, they clearly didn't plot out how they were gonna lay out that description on there. Like, there's a thing called kerning, guys. You know, it was just occurring to me that at Rosehill I don't have nearly many stories about people getting diarrhea as I have at Graceland. I've got a lot more diarrhea stories there. And it's a point that I make about these people weren't dead to begin with. They played games, they told jokes, they sang songs, they got diarrhea, they fell in love, they fell out of love, they got diarrhea again. Not necessarily in that order.
And then they died.
And then eventually they died. So this is a statue of a woman named Maggie May, which sounds like a great setup for... That's a great, like, somebody who would be in, like, a drinking song, Maggie May, bring us another beer. But we don't know too much about them. She was the wife of Harry May, who was a baker, and obviously a fairly successful one if he could afford a monument like this. It was only into her 20s when she died, and there's a couple of data about her. About all that's really out there is just the marriage announcements. Harry May and Maddie Swanson, ages 25 and 16. There's also this other one, 24 and 16. From my own research, I got the impression she was actually 15 at the time, which even then was a lot younger than most people got married. You can just go down the list here. It's mostly people in their 20s. But, you know, 25 and 15 wouldn't have really turned too many heads at the time. Probably should have, but it's not like the latest episode of Only Minnie's in the Building about a guy who was 48 and asked a 15-year-old girl to marry her. And then she poisoned him and took his money, which is kind of awesome. I mean, when you're 48 and you go around asking 15-year-old girls to marry you, and then they poison you and take your money, I'm on their side. But right nearby, the magnificent statue of Maddie, which, not being covered in a glass case, it's been exposed to the elements this entire time. I think it's lost. There's a certain amount of charm to it, being the way it is, but it's not as well protected as some of the others. Some of the ones that we do see on the walking tours. And right across from her is this really striking one. This was actually designed by one of the people buried here. Looking totally different from anything else. This is Seawold and DePaolo. And this is possibly the first monument to a gay couple that was built at Rosehill Cemetery. The main thing people remembered about them, they were a couple who lived in Chicago, lived around the Gold Coast, threw a lot of parties in the late 1980s, though neither of them survived the AIDS epidemic. Seawold died first. DePaolo designed this monument to the two of them, and occasionally in reminiscences in gay newspapers, their names have come up and people try to remember what happened to those guys. The main thing people remember is that they were hilarious. That was an important point to people. Move on a little bit further. Talking about people dead, you know. But
We're not. We're laughing at the comments of your people.
yeah, they're enjoying your comments. Now, this is a bit of a mystery plot right here. This is the family of Richard Loeb, the murderer, one half of the pair of Leopold and Loeb, who famously murdered Bobby Franks back in the early 1920s for reasons nobody is entirely clear on to this day. There's a lot of different explanations. These were a couple of young kids, highly educated. Some say that they were trying to commit the perfect crime. Some believe that they thought that they were like Nietzschean Supermen and laws did not apply to them. And honestly, no explanation really holds up that well, which is part of why the case remains compelling. Somewhere along the line, these two decided that they were going to kill a kid, and ended up killing a 14-year-old kid named Bobby Franks. They brained him with a chisel, but Leopold left his glasses right near the corpse. They really made a lot of mistakes. If they were trying to commit a perfect crime, they did a really lousy job of it, and they were caught fairly quickly, both sentenced to life plus 99 years in prison. Loeb ended up being murdered in prison, but here's the other weird thing, is that we move over from here. His ashes were returned to the family. They've always been rumored to be buried in that plot, but the cemetery would neither confirm nor deny. Not that I've asked them, but it's officially, I'm sure they wouldn't. That's just the rumor that his ashes are actually buried there. But just a few feet away, across the road, is the tomb of Bobby Franks. Really, just literally a stone's throw away from it. It's this one coming up right over here. Now let's talk a little bit about some weird symbols that you see in cemeteries. Everybody loves a good cemetery symbolism talk. This is Captain George Smith. You can see this thing with the circle with all of these lines around it. There is a meaning for this. It's Hiram Tyrannus went to so-and-so. It's some kind of Freemason thing. I couldn't find a whole lot, honestly, about Captain George W. Smith himself, but this is a Freemason acronym. It's amazing to me just how many people in the cemeteries have their secret societies up on those. This is before television, you know. They needed something to do in the evening, so lots and lots of people joined some secret society or another, and obviously got so into it that it doesn't tell you really anything about what they were like on their gravestones, just what they were a member of. And this is something I have to tell myself a lot. When I'm studying these people, I really try to remind myself, you know, these secret societies were really important to them. It's important to understand them if I'm going to understand these people, but half the time I just can't get past the fact that it seems very distant and unimportant to me, these secret lodges. But they do occasionally have some really cool insignia. Like over here on the other side of this one, for one thing, it's a cool angel missing an arm. You could write a pretty cool hymn about that. And this guy is another Freemason symbol for William Francis Milligan with a skull and crossbones. There's a couple of skull and crossbones graves like this at Rosehill Cemetery. I don't know of any of them off the top of my head at Graceland in Chicago. It used to be a lot more common. They would put skull heads on top of gravestones to be a warning to people. By the late 1850s, when Rosehill got started, those kind of really maudlin and really macabre gravestones and epitaphs were generally out of fashion, but you still see the skull and crossbones on people who went for that particular Freemason symbol. There's also just occasionally you find these things that I can't figure out at all, like Anna Jussin Anderson. February 1857, September 1877, November 1894. Most people have 2 dates on their cemetery, when they were born and when they were died. So apparently Anna died twice. Died once in 1877, then again in 94. Now the more logical explanation is probably the middle date was probably when she got married. She would have been about marrying age by the standards of 1877 at the time. But, frankly, I don't know. There's no real record on this that I could determine. Partly because Anna Anderson is just such a common name to begin with. It's more fun if it's just a mystery anyway. Move a little bit on. Speaking of lodges, there's another guy I don't think I've ever included before. And he's a little off center here. We'll move that up. And this one, you see this one driving by on Peterson. It's right at the edge of the cemetery. It's one of a couple of them that are most noticeable. Statue of a guy by the name of John B. Finch, who was a member of the International Order of Good Templars, IOGT. They gave him an entire thing. He was, the International Order of Good Templars was largely a temperance organization. There's a story that was often told that when he was a young man, he was out walking with his mother, and this drunken man came stumbling out of a saloon, you know, and his mother said, "Look at that and never be like that." And he said, "Mother, not only will I never touch liquor, but I will shut down all the places that sell it." And that's what he set out to do. He was a major player in the temperance movement for a long time and was really well known for being a very powerful speaker. There's a couple of shots that we have of him here. And here's what he looked like, in fact. Excellent mutton chops there. And in fact, there's another one I forgot to add, but I got it right here. I'm going to put it in anyway. Here he is in his International Order vestments. Frankly, it kind of looks like young Abraham Lincoln playing dress up there. I don't know, these robes and insignia just look dumb to me all the time, to be perfectly honest. But he was well known as a good temperance orator until one day he was waiting on a train and just dropped dead. Over on the other side is his thing, Entered the Higher Life, 1887. He was only 35 when he died. It was given due to heart trouble. If you poke around on Google Books, there's an entire biography of this guy, mostly talking about how much he hated drinking. He was, the introduction to it, though, is written by another temperance crusader who was here at Graceland. Not a lot of prohibition enthusiasts who really make these tours. But over around the edge, the woman who wrote the introduction to his autobiography was a woman named Frances Willard, who was the president of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. And she and he bonded over their shared support for women's suffrage at the time as well. And this one is almost on the route. This one actually does come up occasionally on the walking tour routes. I'm going to move over here a little bit.
Yeah, this footage is tasty.
Forget he had them on. He just thought he could do it and not lose his glasses.
Sounds better.
Move over. This one's kind of common on walking tours, I think, but it's just too far from the entrance to make it proper. But it's easy to want to include this one on it because it's such a famous name. This is the grave of Oscar Meyer, who ran a deli in Old Town, Oscar F. Meyer and brother. And obviously I can't bring up Oscar Meyer's grave. There's always a rumor that now and then they would bring several of the Wienermobiles into Rosehill Cemetery and have a weenie roast right on Oscar Meyer's grave. I understand that's not really true, and that disappoints me to no end. But we gotta at least have the song here.
Class attention. Forward march. Oh, I'd love to be an Oscar Mayer wiener. That is what I truly like to be. 'Cause if I were an Oscar Mayer wiener, everyone would be in love with me. A big parade is so inspiring. Oh, I'm glad I'm not an Oscar Mayer wiener.
Okay, Oscar Meyer himself. Mr. Armour of Armour Hot Dogs is over at Graceland Cemetery. I always wished that they were in the same cemetery. I guess that like neither of those cemeteries is big enough for the both of them. But they have like zombie hot dog wars in the middle of the night, and that would just be too cool for words. Speaking of people with dull biographies, but. No, this isn't a person with a dull biography. I'm confusing her with someone else. This is somebody with a fascinating biography. A little bit further back in the cemetery, one that we did on an early mini tour. This is a woman by the name of Ida Hippac. She was a woman of high society, but in December 30th of 1903, we'll be covering this on the Ghost Tours over the weekend at Mystericon. There was a massive fire at the Iroquois Theater. And a couple of her children were killed. One of her children was killed, Robert. I believe a couple of her children were killed in it. She went on traveling in Europe to grieve, was in and out of Europe for several years, and then booked passage home from Europe one day on the Titanic. But this is her. You can see she died in 1940, so she was not only a woman who lost family in the Iroquois Theater fire, but also a survivor of the Titanic, buried right here at Rosehill. We'll move on a little. Just past the bust of this dude over at the Merchandise Mart. Julius Rosenwald, he was a vice president of Sears. His synagogue still refers to him as our greatest member. He was, what he was besides being a retail vice president, he was a builder of schools. You know, we all know that in the South back in the old days, they had the white school and the black school. And that's oversimplifying things. Often it was the white school and the white school. There was no school available in a lot of areas where black children could study. So Julius Rosenwald built almost 500 schools himself, with help from the communities. Maya Angelou learned to read in a Rosenwald school. Now, one thing I also can't do is I can't really take you guys into the mausoleum. We couldn't, if you have to like call and convince them to let you into the mausoleum right now. It's also way on the other side of the cemetery. But right here inside of the main gates is this little entryway. This is the crypt of John Shedd, who was a worker at the Marshall Fields area. And in Marshall Fields, I think he was the credit manager. I've had enough to drink that I'm not remembering his exact job. Some businessman job. But somebody convinced him to donate the money for the Shedd Aquarium, and you can see that in like the ornamentation on the chairs inside of his crypt. Then on the inside, it looks like this. Really cool. This is a drawing. I always got to imagine there's some kind of Masonic symbols in here or something, but there's this guy in a hooded robe with a key dangling around his neck, holding a sword and a torch. It's like the back of Led Zeppelin 4. Super cool. Said to have been done by the Tiffany Company, though that's one of those things where it depends on who you ask. There's another thing that I especially love inside of the crypt is the guy named Zork. You are standing in a dungeon. Stairs lead down. Oh, you've just been eaten by a grue. Right outside of the mausoleum is one of my very favorite things. The first time somebody sent me a picture of this, I thought it was fake. But this is the crypt of James Minnickakis. Died June 6th, 06, 666. The inscription at the top reads, "From darkness he came, in darkness he lived, to darkness he returned, and from darkness he will be reborn to a better time." First time I saw this, I'm like, this must be the most metal guy of all time! As I understand it, though, he's not even that into heavy metal music. He's just a vampire enthusiast. And you notice I'm referring to him in the present tense. He's actually still alive. He did not die on 6606. He just thought that would be kind of fun to put on his mausoleum. He's never wanted to do an interview. I've always, through friends, he has turned down my request. Personally, though, I think this is awesome. I love it when people have some say in what their own memorials are like and when it tells you something about what they were into, what they were like. This tells you a lot about this guy. Then you see other ones. There's like one of them in the Amos Snell plot just has a plaque on the back saying that her ancestors were on the Mayflower. The most interesting thing you could think of about this person is who her ancestors 300 years ago were. It doesn't tell you a thing about her. Move on a little. There's a nice shot of some deer. There's about a dozen deer who live in Rosehill Cemetery. Most of them I don't think ever actually leave the place. And they're pretty well fed in there, and they got plenty to munch on. Plenty of grazing to do. There's 4 or 5 of them in the shot right here.
Find a human Friday.
But over near them is Eliza Chapel Porter, who is widely regarded as the first teacher in Chicago. There's a guy at Graceland who talks about being a student there so that he got whipped on the regular, just on general principle. So this is probably the person who administered his beatings. Eliza Chapel Porter. Now, she was also involved in the Underground Railroad. There was a time when she was living in Wisconsin near some lighthouse and was asked if she could hide a couple of people who were escaping from slavery in the lighthouse. She was able to do it, but the boat that was supposed to take them away took longer than it was supposed to arrive. Her daughter wrote this massive biography of her, and she mentions at this incident, so many amusing things happened that I'm laughing just thinking about them. But then she doesn't say what they were. She just goes back to talking about how pious her mother was. There's a lot of biographies of people like this who, it's a 700-page biography, but if you cut out all of the rambling about how pious they were, it would be maybe 50 pages long. That's what people wanted in those days, I guess. Or they wanted to hear about people like Levy Boone. This is a nice danceable grave. Levy Boone was an early Chicago mayor and a member of the Know Nothing Party. So called because when they were running for office, they wouldn't say what their platform was. If anybody asked, they were just supposed to say, "I know nothing." But it was generally known that the Know Nothings were violently anti-Mason, like not just that you kind of make fun of their outfits, and also violently anti-immigrant. Dr. Boone had done some heroic stuff during the various cholera waves in Chicago, especially the one in 1854 and 1849. But thereafter, he started going around saying that the reason we had cholera was all these immigrants. There was a period when he became mayor, he immediately tried to shut down all of the beer halls on Sunday. There's a great urban legend that within when they started having riots on the Clark Street Bridge, he had them open up the bridge. Now, at the time, it was a swing bridge. It could kind of swing back and forth. If it was swung open, everybody was just kind of stranded on it. That doesn't appear in any contemporary accounts of the riot, but it was by most accounts Chicago's first proper riot, the Lager Beer Riots of the 1850s. Move on a little bit further here. There's another place that we've covered on the morning mini tours a few times.
I saw that.
It's the family of John Pollard, who was a member of the United States Colored Troops in the Civil War. He was a drummer in the Civil War. And he was old enough that normally I think he would have been, he was just a teenager at the time. But one of the first black men to join the Army. Eventually his family became the first black settlers of Rogers Park here in Chicago. And one of the thing that I like the best, his most famous son, Fritz, was one of the first black professional quarterbacks to play football. But also, you can see there's Hughes Pollard, who died in 1926. His father had been a Civil War drummer. Hughes Pollard was a jazz drummer, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I've never been able to find a recording of Hughes Pollard drum. I found a couple of things that he's supposed to be on, but you can't really hear drums on them at all, which makes it a little harder. Move up from here. This may be a bit of a shorter tour today, as I got 2 boat tours to run tomorrow, then Mystericon all weekend. I got to try to keep my voice in shape. Here we've got Charles F. Gunther, who was a collector and tried to do things like he tried to buy the pyramids of Egypt and move them to Chicago. It would have been really cool, honestly. He did buy Libby Prison down in Georgia, the most notorious prisoner of war camp of the Civil War. Had that moved to Chicago as a museum. But he was also, I really wish that I had a car that I could sell to this guy, honestly. He bought things like George Washington's clock, which might have been George Washington's clock. Hard to tell one way or the other. And then he would buy things like the skin from the serpent in the Garden of Eden, shown here mounted on a wall. You really wish, like, did he really think this was the real deal? Did he actually pay a lot of money for this? That I'm not really sure, but they still have it at the Chicago History Museum to this day. Let's see, who else have I got here? It's another one that's just too far back to include on the tours, but it's so striking to see. This is a kid named Charles Collar who has a statue here. And we don't know too much about Charles. He died when he was 8 years old. Not a whole lot about him is actually recorded. It's often an issue when the statue is of a child. They died before they had made any business deals or anything that would get recorded in the newspaper. Conrad, his father, the person who would have commissioned this, was a printer for the Chicago Tribune. He was running the press offices at the time of the Great Chicago Fire. So the Chicago Tribune was printing again 2 days after their entire office and all of their stuff were destroyed by the Great Chicago Fire. Mr. Collar went to see Mr. Medill, the publisher, and said, what are we supposed to do? And Medill said, okay, I've heard about a guy who has a printing press that you might be able to buy a couple miles to the west. So we got a whole team of guys together with a wagon. We're able to buy this guy's off-brand, they didn't have brands of it, but a piece of junk printing press for $2,000. Then they set up a place. Medill had already bought one of the buildings that hadn't quite been torched. He had bought as an office. So working overnight with the ashes still smoldering, Conrad Collar was able to put out another edition of the Chicago Tribune just hours after the Great Chicago Fire. Really an incredible feat. And one other I can cover. This guy occasionally I'll take an excursion out to. As we talk about him right at the beginning of the tours. We talk about George W. Green, a Chicago banker who murdered his wife in 1854 during a cholera epidemic and hoped that everybody would believe it was just cholera. It didn't work because Dr. James Van Zandt Blaney exhumed the corpse, put a lot of the organs into earthenware jars, ran some tests, found that they crystallized in a certain way. The liquid that drained them was had a certain kind of bitterness that all indicated that he had been poisoning his wife with strychnine. Now, at the one hand, when I was reading over this, he said the liquid which drained from the crystals was intensely bitter. How would he know if he didn't taste it? And in fact, he did taste it. He asked the jury to taste it as well, though they declined. Wisely declined, but his speech ended up being printed in medical journals for years thereafterwards, and he himself was the first president of Rosehill Cemetery. On the jury for that trial was the architect William W. Boyington, who built the Chicago water tower that survived the Great Chicago Fire, not to mention these very gates, and the governor's mansion in Iowa. But all right, we're wrapping up a little early today so I can save my voice for Mystericon. I'm desperately afraid I'm going to lose it a second boat tour. But here's some upcoming things. There are still tickets available for my Mystericon events over the weekend. Also stuff for Layla's events and Patty's events. Just go to MysteriaChicago.com for all of that. Following Mystericon, our next in-person tour is going to be at Graceland Cemetery October 10th at 10 and 1 a.m. Then the next Saturday, we'll have 2 tours. We'll have Rosehill Cemetery. I meant, that's not a typo. I meant it to be like the French cemetery. It's French, that's all. But the morning of Saturday, October 16th at Rosehill Cemetery. That evening will be H.H. Holmes' The Devil Downtown, a walking tour in the Loop. Tickets for all the October stuff is up at MysteriousChicago.com. And next Thursday, a week from today, somehow in the middle of all of this, I'm doing a whole new virtual tour. But I can't really not. We're approaching the anniversary, the 150th anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. So that's what we are going to be doing a week from today, a brand new virtual tour. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, should you need a Mysterious Chicago t-shirt, hoodie, etc., go to cafepress.com/MysteriousChicago. You can see him right there. Hey, I can see double right now. 4 of my dad. All right. Mystericon is this weekend. It begins tomorrow with the boat tours. I'm kind of scrambling it out of my mind right now. The boat tours are now officially both sold out. Thank you guys so much. That is absolutely incredible. I was afraid we wouldn't be able to sell one of them out. But we actually sold out both of the runs. So then we've got stuff all weekend for Mystericon. Go to MysteriousChicago.com. That'll all check out. The Graceland tour for this Saturday is going to be 9 o'clock. It's the only time they could get me in for this one. And that'll stay out of the way of everybody else's events as well. I will be sending out emails to everybody, everything like that shortly. And once again, if you want to join us tomorrow, Mount Olivet Cemetery on the south side. That's where Find a Grave Friday is going to be if you want to come by and say hi. So, once again, everybody, I will put some Benny Goodman back on somehow or another. And we will just hang out like we always do. Thanks a lot for joining me, everybody. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. I don't know why my computer is not playing music well right now. Miles is doing very well now. I got to admit, last week I was being a lot more nervous about Miles than I was trying to let on. He didn't want to run, didn't want to play. Seemed like he was just tired all the time. But now he is pretty much back to normal. No, Gene, I have not oversold the boats. I deliberately did not oversell the boats. Beverly, yeah, we'll still be doing the virtual tour. It'll be virtual, but if anyone wants to join us, we'll all find a grave tomorrow. A perfect time now for the fam to answer questions. Okay. Go ahead, ask away. Tomorrow we'll find a grave Friday as always at 10 o'clock, so we'll be a little bit there. Priya is doing surprisingly well with extra people in the house. No, Eli will not be here. Toda rabah, Lisa. Thanks, Joan. I gotta drive home after the boat tours, so we won't be getting me trashed. The family is right behind me right now. Yeah, I'll be trying to live stream about as much as I can. Can I introduce my wife as Doreen Clay? Come on up here, Ronnie. Yeah, Lisa, of course. I'll sign whatever for anybody. What was Adam like as a kid, someone asks. I'll let you come and feel that yourself. This is Ronnie, everybody. This is my wife, Ronnie. A young adult novelist. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was blonde.
Oh, yeah.
With straight hair.
You have to come up here for people to hear you. I hope they weren't hearing you all laughing so loudly at the sad stories.
They were.
They were?
laughing at John's stories.
Yeah, not at the people who died of it.
Adam was an aloof child,
Yeah.
as you can imagine. And blonde, as Ronnie said.
He was blonde, and he was... Let me see.
There you go.
Here I go. He had crippling ADD, crippling me.
My teachers, too. But, Ronnie, Ann read your book in one sitting.
That was nice.
And
You liked it? Thank you for reading it.
did I talk a lot?
On certain subjects.
Yeah.
Star Wars, baseball.
Yeah, I was blonde. Somewhere around the age 8, my hair got darker. But I was blonde and had a bowl cut. Yeah, Ronnie's coming on the boat tour. Oh yeah, here's a picture of me at the time getting Frozen Han Solo as a present. Still got Frozen Han Solo. He's right down here.
Benny Goodman cuts his men loose on a tribute to that area below the Mason-Dixon line.
I need someone taller than I am.
All right, well, I've only got this one Benny song that I can keep playing on here. I'm sure Ronnie will sign books too tomorrow. Yeah.
Music of Benny Goodman and his orchestra from the Joseph Urban Room of the Congress Hotel in downtown Chicago. And now a special,
Ronnie
Big John
was a
special
adult novelist.
by Benny Goodman and his orchestra.
Yeah. You know, Paul the real estate novelist never had time for a wife. Sure. Just never had time for a wife. Dad, everybody in that song is gay except Billy. It's a running joke among all of them. They all have a running joke. When is Billy going to figure out that this is a gay bar?
I didn't know that.
That's a fan interpretation, but it makes all the sense in the world.
I'm gonna go back and listen to that.
Yeah. If you listen to that thinking this is a gay bar and everyone thinks it's hilarious that Billy doesn't know, it makes all the sense in the world.
We'll try that again.
All right, we'll try it.
And Norris. Donna, Patty is planning to do some whiskey and a cookie tomorrow. I may or may not be able to join in much myself.
I think you'll be busy.
Yeah. The whiskey and the cookies at 6:30. The people are going to start meeting in the parking lot at 7 to kick off Mystericon. Officially, we're not supposed to do that, but what are they going to do? Ban me for a year? Rose says, thanks for turning Georgia blue. There goes Priya.
We'll keep trying.
Betsy, absolutely. You can absolutely come swing by 900 South Wells to say hi. Thank you, Eleanor. Yes, please do. Lucas says hi, Ronnie.
I love you.
Hi, Luca.
Hi, Luca.
This is hi to us. Say hi to Ronnie.
That's what the grandparents.
Oh, Gene, that's awesome. Patty is planning to come on the boat tour and also in the Mystericon meeting room at the Palmer House on Saturday. She's going to do a thing at noon. I think we're going to play What's in the Box, which is a game we used to play on a radio show where we read Amazon reviews and people have to guess whether we're describing a toy or a toy. It's a really fun game. They made her stop doing it on WGN. Yep, family will be on both of the boat tours. Aiden will just be on the second one because he's working check-in for the late tour.
Whether you like it or not.
But he'll be around ahead of time, so...
How did we meet?
Susan, we met in high school.
You probably have to come up to say that. The
Susan,
microphone
we
is
met-
here.
We met in high school.
Thank you for taking my line. Goodbye.
Driving around with a tar top down and the radio on.
We did do that.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
a convertible, so.
Right.
You know,
They did drive around with the car top down and the radio on, blasting the Carpenters.
It was actually an 8-track.
Yeah.
8 tracks.
8-track, yeah.
Until I broke it. That's so cute. Oh my God. That's so cute.
And we'll do some live stream. I don't know how much we'll be live streaming. We'll try to live stream as much as we can.
We both work at a movie theater. something. Had you at the theater one time. Oh, was that?
Now they're arguing about when they met.
Parking lot at a swing park.
They graduated in the 70s.
And she thought my name was Reggie when we first met.
Patty Grandma Bell is back in, is still down in Georgia.
No.
I thought she was unattainable, so I...
Oh, you didn't know. I think I was
National Broadcasting Company is presenting the music of Benny Goodman and his orchestra from the Joseph Urban Room of the Congress Hotel in downtown Chicago. And now a special, Big John special, by Benny Goodman and his orchestra.
Our high school one had 10th, 11th, 12th.
Grandma Bell is watching live, though. She's not present in here. She's at Cassidy and Christie's place. Cassidy, Christie, and Lucas' place.
We think so. Did we see something Bell was watching?
I'm sure on the big screen.
That was here on our couch.
Maybe?
My parents are moving to a place in South Georgia on the coast.
Someone's gonna call me Reggie from now on.
Alex is always watching, always listening. Carol, there's quite a bit of coast in Georgia.
Anybody don't know who that is? He's a man named Reggie Mantle.
Oh yeah, everybody knows who Reggie Mantle is.
Not everybody.
He appears on the show Riverdale, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which is basically Twin Peaks in the Archie world.
Really?
Yeah.
I heard that show was going off the radar.
I think it was off the rails first episode.
It's edgy.
If it wasn't the Archie characters, it wouldn't have made the tiniest bit of sense from the beginning. Not even in that Twin Peaks way where you know it means something.
I think
But
even with the Archie characters, it probably even makes less sense.
yeah, it was like I loved the first couple episodes of that Sleepy Hollow show, but you knew that by the end of the season, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to follow a bit of what was going on. It took about 4 episodes.
Is that also CW?
Yeah.
Yeah, CW shows
I've heard that CW is good at starting shows, but terrible at like continuing them. Like,
Hey,
Flash has also
Ray
just
Robinson
gone
asked
off
how you're
the
doing in
rails, too.
college.
Yeah.
We'll tell him how you're doing in college.
Yeah, come tell everybody how your school's going. I'm exploiting my family tonight. Perform or I will lock you in a box like Shirley Temple.
How school's going?
How's school going?
I don't know. It's going good. I've got A's.
They're Irish, not from Georgia.
And,
There you go.
and tell us about your textbook.
They know about the textbook.
Oh, the math textbook?
No,
That's oh,
the one that I wrote.
well, that's not really a textbook. That's an actual book.
That is being used as a textbook, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah, forget it.
Okay.
if you tell me to talk about the textbook, I'll talk
Do I know where Elizabeth Packard is buried in Rosehill? Not off the top of my head, no.
Outfit is not nice.
Hi, Grandma Bell. Lindsay, I'll see what I can find, but I don't know off the top of my head. It's harder to find people at Rosehill than it is at places where they have like a search function. And they're occasionally not even that open to telling people where people are buried. Yeah, Aiden, what's the deal with the math textbook then?
Oh my. Okay.
You have to come to the microphone.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't have a boom mic dangling over there. Thank
So
goodness.
you've got to pay $90. That's like actual textbook price, about right?
Yeah.
For 4 months of temporary access that you had to use a code to get for.
Benny
To
Goodman
what?
Judges men lose
To
all
access
tribute
to
to that area
everything.
below the
Homework,
next
quizzes.
Oh, that's just a racket.
Yes. Textbooks in general are a racket. I speak that as somebody who wrote one.
Oh, Pullman's there.
They'll still be doing updated edition. Well, they haven't done an updated edition yet, but they probably will after I'm dead or something. Oh, Pullman's here. Great.
Pullman.
We'll see you tomorrow, Pullman. We're going to go through Pullman.
The National Park
Who's in charge of Oakwood Cemetery? Dignity Memorial as well.
from the Joseph Evan
The place we're doing the cleanup is not actually controlled by them, though.
And now a special, Big John special, by Benny Goodman and his orchestra.
Lindsay, you'll have to find out. Send me an email if you can. Right now, everything's going to be slipping through my fingers all the time. Like the ABBA song. Oh, hey, Priya. Priya's here. She doesn't like sitting still very much yet. Okay, Kristen and Jan have a question. I'm waiting to see it.
Pullman wants to know where to meet tomorrow.
Well, the Graceland book is out in June. After having been kicked down the road. List of people buried at Oak Woods, not a searchable one. If you go to their Wikipedia or Find a Grave, it'll have a list of notable burials. We will be meeting at Mount Olivet tomorrow, a little bit before 10.
Somebody wanted to know where at Mount
Right inside of the main gates, near Catherine O'Leary. And Michael McDonald's mausoleum is right up there, too. Right inside of the main gates. Gene, yes, you can pre-order the Graceland book at all of the online places.
Somebody said she graduated from home day.
George Pullman's doing a train tour tomorrow. How do you mix up the route on a train tour there, George?
Is George in charge of the track inspections and
Oh, Katie, if you're coming tomorrow, I owe you a book. Don't let me forget.
Don't forget that book on.
Yeah. Is there a place in Chicago my parents haven't been to yet? Lots. Yeah, they're not here that much. Yeah, we're going to. I'm taking them to Chinatown tomorrow. I'm trying not to pack my schedule too much. I promised an ice cream place in Pullman that I'd go there tomorrow. That's a hard promise to make me make.
Is
there a lot of people buried at Howard?
Oak Woods.
Oh.
See ya, kitty. Miles has been hanging out in the linen closet the last couple of hours. Will I be selling books tomorrow night? I doubt it. I might put some in the trunk of the car if I have time, but I'm not really set up for sales. And Mom and Dad will be here for a couple of days. They won't be here for all of Mystericon.
Even after the Graceland.
Yeah. Kristen, that's the one. They reached out to me on the Facebook Messenger. I'm like, oh, okay, sure, I can't say no to that. Patty, I can't do raffles anymore.
You could do them in person.
Maybe in person I could, yeah.
Where you just can't use paper.
Yeah.
Benny Goodman cut it with
A copy of Just Kill Me. I might be able to put one of those in a box. Have I tried Margie's? I got engaged at Margie's. Yes, I've tried Margie's. Yep.
Over a chocolate phosphate.
Yeah, that's all the money I had at the time. All I could afford was the chocolate phosphate. They do a pretty good egg cream there.
Company is presenting the music of Benny Goodman and his orchestra from
I'll see what I can cram into the trunk, but it's going to be tight schedule-wise tomorrow, too.
the special, Big John special, by Benny Goodman and his orchestra.
Wouldn't be selling the books.
I still got my dessert to eat too. You know, I took my parents to Bialy and Bagel this morning, and they had Hamantaschen, which is not really in season right now. It's a long way from Purim. Now, they have really big Hamantaschen there.
What were these?
Those are limoncello vanilla marzipan.
That's it. Oh.
We took them to a candy shop too.
Oh.
Oh, that's good. Grab one of those. Eat that.
Yeah, I want to try one of these. And we went to a place called Amy's Candy Bar near Lincoln Square. And this is a limoncello vanilla marzipan ball. And it's really good. All right, Kristen. Wendy, Margie's was the coolest place I could take her to. That doesn't seem like a good late place to do it. Oh yeah, this is some delicious candy. Oh yeah, well later I will post the pictures of all of the pies that we've had. How many pies have we had?
Well, we had 2 different kinds
Yeah,
of
today I had an apple cider pie at Bang Bang Pie. Yesterday I had apple blueberry. And
Excuse me, you had apple blueberry?
You brought you something.
I had peach raspberry yesterday.
yeah, Mom had peach raspberry
Today I had salted chocolate.
and salted chocolate.
And I had chicken pot pie.
Yeah, you had a plum pie too.
Oh, that plum pie.
That plum pie was delicious too. Yeah,
And grits.
yeah. I'll let Benny finish off this line. George says Pullman is closed tomorrow. You've been closed for a long time, George. You're out of business. The apple cider pie was like a cheesecake, really.
Here's your pumpkin spice caramel.
What?
Pumpkin spice
Ooh.
caramel.
This is a pumpkin spice caramel. Oh, yum. Priya.
You can have all of those pumpkin ones.
Okay. Here goes Priya.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, Octavio, there's a Hoosier Mama stand there. I was on there for a mini tour one morning, but they were out of pie.
What?
Yeah. You only have so much at the farmer's market.
Oh,
Peter, I'll try to load some in the back of my car. But I will only be able to take, I'll probably take cash or Venmo. Good night, Lisa.
Benny Goodman cuts his men loose on a tribute to that area below the Mason-Dixon line.
All right, everybody. That sounds like Benny Goodman is wrapping it up, and I got to save my voice. Also, there is a new episode of Only Minis in the Building up that went up a couple of days ago. There won't be a new episode this week because there's just too much going on right now, including a new tour, Mystericon all weekend long. Once again, Mystericon begins tomorrow. I'm not prepared for this. I'm prepared, but it's kind of, I'm getting to just now having the freaking out effect about it. But all right, everybody. So next in-person tours include Graceland Cemetery next Sunday, the Saturday following Rosehill Cemetery, and H.H. Holmes, The Devil Downtown. A week from tonight, a brand new virtual tour for the 150th anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire. So thanks a lot, everybody, for joining me. I'm Adam Seltzer from Mysterious Chicago Tours. That's
Tip
my
your
mom.
host.
Nice. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks to my whole family laughing at inappropriate times throughout the course of the tour. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'm Adam Seltzer from Mysterious Chicago Tours. I'll see many of you tomorrow or this weekend, and the rest of you, I hope, very soon.